Brand new Fox Business polls showing former President Trump is still dominating the GOP field. Trump has a 34-point lead in South Carolina at 48%, with former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley in second place at 14% in her home state. Now to Iowa, 46% of likely GOP caucus goers are backing the former president, with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in second, 16%, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott in third at 11%. 6 candidates have already met both the polling and the fundraising criteria for the first debate, which will be hosted by Fox News. Trump, DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie have all qualified. The former president joined Maria on Sunday Morning Futures, explaining why he is the right candidate for America right now. Watch.
What is the most important issue about your policy and your leadership that you want independents to understand?
Security for our nation, number one, and that's a very important issue for independents and for women. They want security, they want safety. We're going to close the border. We're going to get rid of all of the criminals that have been allowed to come into our country that are causing us tremendous problems, and terrorists that are going to cause us problems for many years to come. We are going to create the greatest economy. We're going to become energy independent. Energy prices are going to go way down. That's going to take inflation down.
Joining me now is Democratic strategist and former Biden campaign surrogate Kevin Walling and former Chief of Staff to Vice President Pence, Advancing American Freedom co-chair Marc Short. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you. Marc, let's start with you. Your reaction to these polls coming out, these new Fox Business polls coming out of South Carolina and of Iowa.
Well, good morning, Cheryl. I think that those polls are consistent with what we've seen for a while, and that each time that Donald Trump gets indicted or there's a prospect of yet another indictment, it seems the Republican primary voters rally around the president. And look, I think that there was 4 years of a lot of achievement during the Trump-Pence administration that Republican voters are excited about. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot more that's ahead for the president, many more hurdles. Will it continue to be that each new indictment continues to rally people, or will it be that at some point the weight of those indictments simply becomes too much? And I think that for many voters, I do still think there's a change and a difference between saying appreciate the record, but at some point the legal hurdles and the drama is too much. And I think for many of us who certainly lived through January 6th, there's a question that when the president willfully disregards his oath to the Constitution and asks his vice president to willfully disregard his oath to the Constitution, whether or not that is a barrier that eventually will become too much for many Republican voters to support.
Well, Kevin, and I'm glad you brought that up because there is a very lengthy Wall Street Journal piece over the week. Sorry, Marc, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm taking this to Kevin. There's a very lengthy Wall Street Journal piece over the weekend talking about the effect of January 6th, the possible indictments of the former president, but how these GOP candidates, Kevin, are having to dance around this issue. Because, look, as we've seen in these Fox Business polls, there is a lot of support and momentum for Donald Trump. At the same time, these candidates have to respond to that without basically upsetting that MAGA base that is there. Kevin, I realize you're on the Democratic side, but this is a dance that all of these candidates are having to make politically. What do you make of it?
Yeah, Cheryl, it's a great question. It really is a delicate dance, and we'll see how that dynamic plays out now that we're less than a month from that first debate in Milwaukee hosted by Fox. But to Marc's point, interestingly enough, Donald Trump raised more money in Q2 than Q1 after this first round of indictments came down with the classified documents case. So that Fox Business polling shows, he's leading in Iowa by 30 points over Ron DeSantis, by 34 points over former Governor Nikki Haley in South Carolina. And now I think one of the interesting dynamics to come out of this Fox Business polling is the fact that Ron DeSantis is no longer this two-person race between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. It's really a wide open field under Donald Trump, who is by and far leading the pack, certainly in those two critical early states.
Let me ask you something, Kevin, real quick before I go back to Marc on this. And this is on, again, this is a piece in the Journal, but it's about Bidenomics, because obviously President Biden is running on his history with his economy, Bidenomics. They say high prices have turned this into an albatross for President Biden. Economic issues that could have been a tailwind for his reelection are becoming a headwind. What do you say, Marc? Excuse me,
No,
Kevin, I'm sorry. I keep getting y'all confused. Apologies.
I think that's true, and you saw Jared Bernstein on Fox News Sunday trying to make that case with Bidenomics. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect right now as these policies start to take hold that the president, focused on, whether it be infrastructure, chips, this manufacturing boom that we're seeing in this country, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, and there's a little bit of a lag time between what people are feeling, and people are still down about the economy in terms of how they're feeling, and now with these great statistics that we're seeing with it regards to job creation, under 4%. We're leading the world in terms of tackling inflation, down by 2/3 since its peak. Gas is down by $1.50 since its peak. So again, I think there's a time now with this administration, this campaign ramping up now out of Wilmington for the president's reelect, and hopefully people will start to feel those good benefits of Bidenomics.
Well, we'll see, because so far they don't seem to be too, and that's on different polls that we've talked about with regards to the economy. I want to go back to these Fox Business polls. Mark, with you, to be clear, voters are going to be voting with their wallets. This is going to be, again, the issue. South Carolina, 51% of Republican voters say the economy is the #1 concern, Mark. Iowa, 41% say it's the #1 issue. Your reaction?
Well, I think it is why the Biden administration is trying to claim credit for Bidenomics. But, I mean, the reality is that Joe Biden is more like the arsonist who's claiming to be firefighter when it comes to inflation. He set the world on fire with the massive spending that he introduced into the United States economy that generated the inflation. While there's a lot of excitement saying that it's now the increase is down to 3%, it doesn't mean inflation's down. It means simply the annual increase is less than it was. Since Joe Biden became president, inflation overall is up about 17%. Gas prices are up 60%. Many of your eggs, chicken, pork are up 20, 25%. The American family feels that, and they know that. And they know that the energy policy this administration has sought is to basically shut down domestic supply of energy. We're at a 40-year low in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, a 40-year low, because Biden tapped into it just to try to appease and lower the gas prices that his policies generate such enormous increases in. And the American voter knows that. And so I think the Biden administration is trying to change the debate and the conversation about the economy. But the reality is it continues to be the #1 issue for most voters, not just in South Carolina, but in Iowa and across the country, because inflation is something that impacts every family. It is a tax on working families, and it's been an enormous tax that most have had to suffer through.
Mark, real quick before you run, though, I just got to ask you this on the Republican side here. According to our polls in Iowa, how important is voting for a candidate who can defeat President Biden? Extremely important, 66% in Iowa, and in South Carolina, 72%, Mark. This matters.
Well, it does matter, but I think that the one candidate probably in the field that can't beat Joe Biden is Donald Trump. Because the reality is he lost in 2020, and it's hard to suggest that since January 6th, what are the policies or positions he's taken that's actually drawn more voters to him. And so I think that is going to continue to be a challenge for Republican primary voters who I think want to rally behind the president when they feel like it's a perceived political indictment. But at the same time, the challenge of electability will be one that voters have to face as we move forward.
All right, guys, it's great to have you here. Marc Short, Kevin Walling, thanks to both of you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.